might be listening in. It's great to have you. Again, our next meeting will be Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We'll have 2 meetings, then 2 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock. So with that, Barry, I guess we'll go ahead and get started and bring Jill and Kelly up for the Outback Key update, or whoever.
Whichever.
Okay.
Oh, Paul Causey. I'm sorry. I said that, Mr. Chairman. I gave you the wrong people. It's Paul Causey.
It doesn't look like Jill or Kelly. So, hi, Paul. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. We'll go ahead and get started. If you recall, next slide, back in May of 2020, staff brought recommendations to you to change the vessel exclusion zones that were associated with Fort DeSoto Park, as well as the emerging island ebb shoal that's known as Outback Key. The vessel exclusion zones that were proposed did have a strong backlash from the boating community, so we never enforced the vessel exclusion zone that's shown on the map in the upper left-hand portion right there where the cursor's showing, that covered the lagoon area as well as a shorebird nesting area. Next slide. That whole area of Outback Key, North Beach, Fort DeSoto has been subject to dynamic changes over the year. This past year has been no different with the tropical storm Eta, and that entire area is actually forming or following historic progressions that have occurred before and actually formed the north tip of Fort DeSoto Park. We know from history that changes will continue to take place with the expectation that eventually that whole area known as Outback Key will collapse onto Fort DeSoto North Beach. The progression of these changes, particularly those that have occurred recently, have actually made portions of the exclusion zones obsolete and unnecessary. In September of 2020, we had new aerial orthographic imagery done in the area and held discussions with not only our bird stewards and the St. Pete Audubon Society, but also representatives from the recreational boating industry as well as the marine industry. Next slide. So what I'm going to take you through here is just really a progression of what's been occurring out at Outback Key and Fort DeSoto North Beach. And what you're looking at right here is a 2019 aerial photo. And specific areas I want you to keep an eye on is what we call the hump, which which Brian is showing with his cursor. And there's also the area we call the point, and the channel. And there's also an additional ebb shoal that's forming right off to the west a little bit in front of that area. It's part of the continuing changes out there. So right now we're looking at 2019 aerial photograph. And now I'd like to move to the September 2020 high tide aerial photograph. Right there. So once again, if you look at the hump, the area we described at the hump, you can see that has moved. It continues to move to the east and south. The point has extended further towards North Beach. And I also want to point out, I didn't point out earlier, but that black line you see is actually the Fort DeSoto Park boundary. And as well as the area that was the previous channel has now closed off and collapsed onto North Beach. So then we'll move to low tide, and it's even more pronounced.
Sorry, Paul, is that the
That's right at the end.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Right here?
Yes. So there you see, of course, at low tide, the beach along Bunces Pass is larger. The point and the areas within the lagoon are shallower. So using this imagery, we're proposing new vessel exclusions or new vessel zones. And if we can go to the next slide. What we're recommending to do is to remove all restrictions associated with Bunces Pass and allow unrestricted access to all vessel types to the majority of the lagoon, which is that area above the red hash line. And then we would also, in the area of what we call the nesting shorebird territory, we would enact a no combustion vessel zone, which would still allow for access by paddleboarders, kayaks, any non-combustion motor vessel. And then we would minimize the north and south limits of the vessel exclusion zone, which is shown in the reddish pink color, while expanding the vessel exclusion zone in the swim area a little more to the west because we have some additional emergent ebb shoals forming out there, or sandbars. So in order for folks to get out to the actual swim area, you may have to go out over 100 yards or more. So next slide, please. So the revised vessel exclusion zones would remain unchanged at East Beach and the Dog Beach swim areas, which are far outside of this area. And it would still maintain the North Beach Sea Shorebird Protection Area, which is in the southernmost area of North Beach. And we would have non-combustion zones that cover the southernmost portion of the lagoon and also extends 50 yards to the eastern side of the new emergent sandbar. And the reason why the non-combustion zone doesn't extend farther than that is because in my discussions with the boating community, they still understand that there is a new sandbar forming out there, and they want to be able to at least approach that from the western side while still allowing the protection of the shorebird nesting area. And once again, the northern area of the lagoon will remain open to all vessels with no restrictions. Next slide. So if you're looking at this now, just to go through, we've got the lagoon area remains or will be unrestricted. The non-combustion zone will protect the shorebird nesting area. The vessel exclusion zone will protect the swimmers. Then the previously existing non-combustion zone will protect the shorebird nesting and resting area. And then we'll maintain also the existing vessel exclusion zones at the Dog Beach as well as East Beach. Next slide. So the anticipated timeline for implementation starts with this work session today. Then we would work with the county attorney's office to rewrite the ordinance and schedule time to repeal the existing ordinance. We would advertise for a public hearing anticipated in January of 2021, finalize the ordinances, submit the restrictions to Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission for informal review, which we don't expect to be an issue because we didn't have any opposition to the previous more restrictive exclusions that we had proposed. And then we would plan on bringing the ordinances for the public hearing in February, submit. If they're approved, we would submit it to FWCC for their review and to be able to get the necessary permitting to post. And then the other dates that coincide with those restrictions, shorebird nesting season begins March 1st, and then our swim season begins April 3rd. So the hope would be to have everything ready to go with the start of the swim season. And that's my presentation. Questions?
If we could go back to the one that shows the lagoon again.
Sure.
Just trying to make sure not only the actual changes that you're proposing based on where we are today. So I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Would that be the one that had the three different, this one?
Well, I just want to make sure that in all of this, and I'm focusing on this area because that
Right.
seemed to be the area that created most of the issues. But is everything else around the point all the same, status quo? This is the only area that's changing?
Yes, yes. I mean, we have constant erosion.
No, when I'm saying changing, I'm talking about changing policies, not changing.
Yes, this would be the only area that would change.
Okay. And we're just talking about the southern end of that lagoon.
Right. Yeah, we would remove the restrictions in the northern end of the lagoon, basically where that little lip, just above where that little lip sticks out. I'm sorry, a little farther south. So they would still have access to the lagoon. Boats would be able to beach on the Bunces Pass side as well as inside the lagoon without any restrictions until you get to the southern end of the lagoon where the shorebird nesting area is. There would be restrictions there.
So that's what I was getting at. So when we talk about the northern and southern end, we're just talking about the lagoon right now.
Correct.
It's really the southern end is going to be non-combustible. The
Right.
rest of the lagoon, not just the northern end, but the whole rest of the lagoon
whole rest of
will
the
be
lagoon.
open.
Right. Could you go to slide 5, Brian?
Give me 1 minute.
There, where it was. So yeah, you can see that whole area above that red hash mark area, there's no restrictions at all.
And how will that be identified?
We would have buoys that would basically identify the non-combustion zone, but the other area, just like it is now, is open and there's no restrictions.
Commissioner Peters, you had your hand up. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I called the boating community just to make sure that they were okay with this, and they said that you were really great to work with, and it all worked out, and they are supporting it. So I really appreciate you taking this back and really working with the boating community, and they all do seem to think that there's a really good compromise that protects the environment, allows for boating and the swimmers. So I think it's a good compromise.
Thank
So
you. And they were excellent to work with as well.
Yeah, so I appreciate it, and I appreciate you taking the time and going back and working with them, so thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First is, can we get the second slide? Because on the attachment, it's a PDF. It's not that sliding slide. So we have the 2019 photo, but we don't have the 2020 photo on our attachments. If we could just get that at some point, that would be helpful.
Oh, sure.
When do you anticipate it falling into North Beach, as you said, Outback Key just completely closing off?
That's really hard to predict. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of changes. A lot of it really depends. I know we see a lot of activity that occurs, during the winter months because we get storms that come out of the northwesterly area, which pushes that down. But I think Dr. Ping Wang might be able to give us a better prediction, but certainly the changes are occurring rapidly right now. As a matter of fact, I think one of our bird stewards told me after ETA that, we had a lot of overwash area, a lot of that sand continued to move towards North Beach. further closed off some of those new channels that had been forming, probably added, in her opinion, was 10 to 16 acres of new beach
Okay.
out there.
No, there's definitely been a change. And then I think we need to find a way, at least for the time being, of describing the access point to the lagoon. Because we've talked about the lagoon, but I can tell you out there, people were saying we were closing Bunce's Pass.
Right.
You know, that was what, some of that was just by accident, some of it was very intentional, telling people that we were closing Bunce's Pass to scare them into things. But, and then, did we find out more about we have the ability on the airboats or the planes, I'm blanking on the name, the
Oh.
planes landing in the water in the lagoon?
We don't have the ability right now to do any regulation of that. I think there is potentially an opportunity because of the boundary of the park. We have an ordinance that prohibits takeoff and landing of aircraft within the park boundary, but I think we'll probably want to get some clarification from the state. Fort DeSoto was granted to the county from the U.S. government. The state does not claim any of the submerged lands, so we'll continue to look into that. But certainly, if we enforced our boundaries and we are able to enforce Chapter 90, that would prohibit, just because of the lack of room for aircraft to take off.
Yeah, that's what
and land.
I'm looking at the dotted line of what our boundary is, and if you said you couldn't do it there, then that certainly would make it almost impossible. Because that was, I think, a lot of the concern of the folks in there. And then just because I've heard boating community, who is the boating community? Is there an association that we're talking to, or is it just a group of folks, monolithic voice of the
Yeah,
boating community?
there is a Tampa Bay boating.
Boat Tampa Bay, and then the two marine industries that you were talking
Right.
about, the Tampa Bay Marine Industry, and then another one, Kevin's the one that I spoke to.
Yeah, Kevin
with the
Carlin
marine
and
industry.
Misty Botteroff
Yeah.
were the folks that I met with.
Okay, very good. Appreciate your good work on this.
Yeah, Commissioner Flowers?
Thank you. Just a question, and if you all already know the answer, please bear with me. If the state is not claiming ownership to that property, does that escheat automatically back to the county?
I'm not.
Well, I guess
I don't know
that
the
would be
answer to
illegal.
that, but
Submerged land ownership is always somewhat complicated.
That's why I'm asking the question,
Yeah,
because
I mean-
sometimes people want to do things.
Sure.
And then it goes back to who actually owns the land that is submerged to have the rights to do anything above.
Sure. I mean, and ownership issues, again, are never easy to answer, particularly when we're talking about submerged land. One thing I will say is, our regulatory authority is not necessarily tied to our ownership of the land, but as Paul already pointed out, the park boundary certainly is important because we have the park code that we can enforce within the park boundary. We can certainly look into some of the issues, but again, I don't necessarily want to conflate the ownership of the property with our ability to regulate in those areas where we have authority. The issue that Commissioner Justice brought up with some of the other devices out there that are regulated by the FAA. There are limitations on what we can do. But I know that Brendan McAsee on my staff has been working with Paul and his staff to try to come up with solutions to some of the, conflicts between users that we've seen out there. And we're doing what we can to try to create a safe environment for everybody. So
Okay.
we'll continue to look at the issues and work with Paul's staff.
Thank you. And my follow-up question is, and again, I apologize, when we are making policy changes, I think this is all good, but when we're making policy changes like this, are we making sure that that information is shared, not just to the boating community or people who have a vested interest, individuals who are interested in environmental issues and concerns, but just for the general public, especially when you have our seabird sanctuary areas during certain time frames that they're not supposed to go into those areas when there's nesting. So do we provide that type of marketing experience so people know?
Well, I mean, we do post everything out there when you talk about proposed changes. I think one of the issues, because of the continuously changing coastline out there, we have to amend, our vessel exclusion areas and things like that to associate with the swim beaches. The shorebird nesting areas also can move depending on what happens. But one of the things we certainly learned from the May ordinance proposal was that we will be talking to a lot more people in the future, different groups, before we propose any changes. But certainly, we may see changes coming back in a year, 2 years, 3 years, just based on how the landmass changes out there in the water body.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Paul? Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Okay. Let's see. We're going to jump into our second item of state legislative priorities, and I know Brian's here.
Brian still may be tied up in that other meeting, and yes, he is. Okay. So
Why don't we drop
we
down
could-
to the agenda briefing?
we could do that.
I mean, I think that the virtual in-person discussion, I think, needs to have,
Everybody?
yeah,
Okay.
or- yeah, that would be good. So why don't we just jump into the agenda briefing?
Okay, I have two items. One, I'll do the agenda brief, but Mr. Chairman, if I first could, I need to read an announcement, and this has to do with public hearings that are going to be coming up regarding the former Bay Point Golf Course. So I need to read this into the record for that purpose. So today, I'm announcing that Pinellas County Board of Commissioners will hold 2 public hearings to hear citizens' comments regarding the designation of the former Bay Point Golf Course as a brownfield site. The parcels to be designated are located at 9399 Commodore Drive, Seminole, Florida. The Public Works Department will prepare a proposed resolution designating the property as a brownfield site for consideration. The first public hearing will be held on December 15th, 2020 at 6 p.m. at the County Parks and Conservation Resources Department Magnolia Room, which we're in today, at 12520 Almerton Road, Largo, Florida. The second public hearing is scheduled for January the 12th, 2021, also anticipated to be held at the Magnolia Room. A little history on the project. The former Bay Point Golf Course site consists of 42.225 acres and operated as a golf course from 1970 until 2016, was abandoned until the county purchased in February 2020. Preliminary environmental investigations indicate the presence of low-level groundwater and soil contamination, but additional environmental assessment will be required to fully define the extent of the contamination. The resolution authorizes the county to enter into a future brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Resolution identifies the county administrator as responsible for the brownfield site rehabilitation. Resolution authorizes the Public Works Director to sign and file certain reports, plans, and other administrative documents associated with the designation. An outreach program that has included meeting with the Homeowners Association representatives, a virtual open house, a virtual community meeting were held with no negative feedback on the proposed designation made known.
So Barry, real quick, on that, this meeting you're talking about is December, that's Tuesday.
Correct. But we just need to read it in the record that we're going to hold these public hearings,
Okay.
even
So
though it's advertised.
It's already been advertised, it's already out there. People are aware of the, it's going to go on at the same time we have a meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes, it's part of our agenda. I was told I had to read this
Okay.
to announce something that's already advertised on our agenda, but
Okay, all right. The chair's back and Brian's back, so I'm going to turn it back to the chair, and we can probably go back to number 2 if you want to do that. So
That'd be great if I knew what number 2 was. I'm
number
having
2 is the state
difficulties again.
legislative priorities.
The what?
State legislative priorities.
Okay, great. Well, we'll turn it over to Brian then.
we have Laura Balmer here also.
Excellent.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Lowak, Assistant to the County Administrator and Intergovernmental Liaison. I have before you today the draft, the proposed state legislative program for 2021 session, and I have had an opportunity to meet with most of you. As a follow-up to those meetings, I have incorporated much of that feedback into the program before you. I think this is a direct, a relevant program that sends a positive message to the legislature. And I think a lot of these issues that are prioritized here are also priorities that have been expressed by the state legislature. So I think we'll have an opportunity to discuss many of these in advance in that regard. We're here today to get any additional feedback and guidance that you have. If there is consensus on any additions or edits to this program, staff will work on those to include them, and we'll bring these back before you in January to finalize the program. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and I look forward to a great discussion.
Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. I agree fully with the points, and thank you, Brian, for spending time with me on yesterday. The only thing I did mention to him was I saw the absence of any mention of Medicaid funding, and that may be a concern for others around the table. I know we want to keep things short and concise, because when you go up there, they don't want to see 30 and 40 topics. But you know, I would like for us to at least keep that within our thought concept, because that certainly has a lot to do with the services that we provide through the social service component, as well as the Homeless Coalition and other entities that we provide services to. But thank you, and Brian understood what I was concerned about.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
We can't get in the work session. Sorry. Did you? Oh, I can't see you behind your. Good morning. I can see you now. I can hear you too.
So Brian, we talked when you and I met about the issues regarding transportation, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm really, really concerned about the latest news that we've had with regard to the changes in funding for those projects that were already in the work plan for over the next 5 years. And specifically the West Shore interchange and the 275 across the Howard Franklin and downtown St. Pete. I find that really problematic, and while I know that there's little likelihood that we get that money back in the budget this year, I think it's important to keep that on the radar in terms of how critical that is for our regional transportation issues, not only for Hillsborough and Pinellas, but Pasco as well, and how we manage to position ourselves for matching dollars with those projects not being shovel-ready. That is a huge, big problem, especially when you're trying to bring down the federal dollars. And I think it's a big priority for us. We're already 40 years behind the times in terms of the issues that we need to take care of. And goodness knows we have our own issues within the county for our own transportation trust fund. So it's just a snowball getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls down the hill. Don't you agree?
I full-heartedly agree, and I think that's a conversation that we should have with our legislators specifically. And I think identifying those particular projects that we have concerns with, bringing those to their attention, and seeing what we can do to work on those, to progress those projects, is a worthy discussion.
Well, thank you. And, it also is, It also is not lost on me that we got the money from the feds for the Sunrunner dedication and line to go from downtown St. Pete out to St. Pete Beach. And that has always been the catalyst project that would connect us to the 41-mile feasibility plan that T-BARTA and the whole region has come together on. So that's a big problem too, is how do we keep moving forward if they continue down this path of wanting to pull back? And you know that those communities that have those shovel-ready projects are going to get all the money. And, you know, Orlando, South Florida, and Jacksonville have already gotten their shares. So I hope everyone will agree with me to pile on and plead with the legislators that this is something that really needs to be their priority. And then I have another issue, if I might.
Please,
Oh,
go ahead.
Madam Chair. I think you were at FAC, and I'm not sure if you attended the Urban Caucus meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're familiar with the presentation that Commissioner Starkey and Pasco made about the Section 8 housing issue? Are you able to speak to that at all so that we're all on the same page? I thought it was something to really put on our radar and be very aware of.
Sure. So I'm not, I don't have any answers for you. I haven't dove down into the subject, but it's something we can certainly do with our Housing Community Development team, as well as our Housing Finance Corporation. Just for the information for the rest of the commissioners who weren't at that meeting, there is currently HUD allows for applicants to submit for Section 8 housing vouchers in any community, whether or not they live there or not. And what has transpired from that is that you'll have an individual who files for, who submits for multiple housing vouchers in multiple communities where they're not a resident. And what that does is that creates a backlog, and then the residents who are living in that community don't have the opportunity that they should to get that housing. So that's something that I don't know how aware folks are of that provision. I certainly wasn't, but I think it's certainly something that's worth looking into deeper and seeing what we can do about that to make sure our residents in Pinellas County are first up on that list.
But that's a federal issue, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Okay.
It is, but when Commissioner Starkey went back to her county to inquire about it, no one there knew that folks from other counties could get on our waiting list and even jump ahead of the folks that live within our county. And I found that a bit problematic, especially now when we have the potential to have so many folks not able to pay their rent or their mortgage. I mean, I think we have an obligation to take care of our own citizens. Not that I wouldn't like to help everybody, but
That is absolutely a federal issue. I've dealt with this many times, and it doesn't seem fair because, you know, you have local needs, and but because it's a federal program, the way in which the rules are created, that's certainly the case. But, you know, again, we can certainly look at that as part of our federal effort.
I think that's important. Okay, that's all I had for right now.
Thank you.
Oh, except for the sustainability and resiliency issue that I know we're all going to be talking about as we move forward. Right, Barry?
Yes, you actually have a, Della, when is the Hank's presentation? Is that January? So you're going to get an update on the you're going to get the first sustainability plan and their action plan for this next year coming up here at the January work session.
Excellent, because just for everybody's, edification, we started working yesterday at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council on what our next resiliency and sustainability summit might look like. And I found, I don't know if the rest of you either attended or tuned in to how they presented the FAC annual conference this year. It was just fascinating. I know Commissioner Flowers, I saw her in just about every meeting that I attended. I saw Commissioner Justice a couple of times. I hope you were both equally impressed with how they pulled that off. But it was a hybrid version that was just, I thought, enormously well done and very, very successful. So they had more people sign up and actually go to it than they ever thought they would. There were about 150 160 people that were actually there. But then everybody else had the ability to sign in and participate on Zoom. And the way they structured it so that folks that were there could speak, but the folks that were on Zoom could speak as well, I thought was just really, really incredibly well done. So if we're worried about trying to do something like that for a large group, I think that would be an excellent model to Commissioner Eggers think about following.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment.
Mike?
I wanted to echo your comment about the regional transportation priorities that we've done like everything that they've asked us to do, and that is to make sure that the region speaks about transportation priorities. And the TMA that was set up on behalf of the local MPOs prioritized that project in West Shore, the interchange of State Road 60 and I-275, critically important to the region. It wasn't an improvement in Pinellas County or Pasco County, but yet we all came together, all the commissions and the different groups making that a priority. So I was needlessly very disappointed to hear that. I was also very disappointed in that I-275 project that got pushed way back. Oh yeah, it all kind of works together. And I really think that we were doing it the right way. They asked us to come together as a region, and therefore we got the funding for it. What I asked the Secretary for District 7 to do is pull together some information on how the different regions, if you will, of the DOT fared in this. I suspect, and what I'm hearing is that we fared worst, and not happy about that at all, especially in light of the fact that leadership is in our leadership in the area, leadership up there in Tallahassee resides here. And it really disappoints me that I want them to make sure that they're clear on what's going on. And I also understand that there's some other districts that actually gained money during the areas that we had to lose money. And so we're trying to gather that information together from the FDOT, and we'll make sure that you get that and that our legislators, especially our delegated legislators in the region, understand loud and clear. But the only thing I would maybe add is under the priorities, it was a good thought, is that maybe we add an item there that reflects some of these transportation projects, just a brief comment, not in the top 10. We already referenced that in number 10, and regional transportation improvements, but maybe down below under priorities that we voted on as a commission here, but also our MPO, TMA voted on, maybe something down there talking about that State Road 60. It isn't our MPO priorities, but I think it doesn't hurt to have it come from us too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Long? Yeah.
I'm glad that Commissioner Eggers brought up the MPO because I've heard, maybe Brian can speak to it, that Speaker Sprouse has had a desire for our 3 MPOs to merge. And there's a little thing going on in my head that says, well, maybe this is his way of forcing that issue. I don't know. But I think it's worth a sidebar conversation with him to find out before we get too far down the pike with all these changes to our funding.
Just to follow up on that, and I did, I kind of asked similar question, and my understanding is that the groups that have put together these changes, these financial, the movement of the programs, were some planners and some dollar people up in Tallahassee, and so they get in a room and they put the conference together. You know how that works better than I do, but so I'm not sure how much of it is strategic from our legislators' perspective. So I don't know that that's a message being sent to us. But the reason I said that, and I want to stay positive with our folks up there, we have absolutely done exactly what a unified MPO would do by creating this TMA that has been in existence now for almost 6 years and does really good work to speak as a region on major projects. So I haven't sensed that, but we can certainly check into that. I don't think that's a message, but we'll see.
And I would add to that, one of the things that we've heard the last few years in Tallahassee is you've got a lot of folks here, a lot of transportation folks, different transportation groups throughout the region, and they all have priorities. And what we've heard is, what is the priority in Pinellas? What is the priority in Tampa Bay? And I think, as Commissioner Eggers mentioned, we do have a group in the TMA that they do create regional prioritization of projects. They're not always in your county. Maybe this one isn't, the next one is. But I think they've done they're an example of how we can work together as a region. And I think we finally have an answer to those questions we've had. What are the priorities? I think we should do a better job at letting them know about that. And I think that'll go a long way.
Oh, Commissioner Seal.
Well, thank you very much for the information. I think you did a great job with putting together the legislative priorities, and having helped form the TMA, I'm very happy about the success of the regional cooperation. If there is a movement towards unifying the 3 MPOs, I think you already know how I feel about that. I think it's important to do and would finally get us, the TMA is just an advisory committee at this point and doesn't really have any teeth. Having a regional MPO would go a long ways towards getting some projects done, in my opinion. So I think the biggest hump, of course, would be Hillsborough County, as we've learned before. So just keep us tuned on that issue, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to thank Brian for the good work on putting the proposals together, and remind us that we are going to need to be nimble as we move through the next few months, as we see the presiding officer's priorities. And read an article that the president has a lot of prioritization on water projects, and we should just be, again, focusing. Best way we can get success in Tallahassee is find things that the presiding officers want to do and find ways that we can do something that they want to do. So we just need to be nimble on some of those issues.
Thank you, sir. And that's one of the things we're going to be focused on as they get into committee weeks and we start to get a better understanding of what those priorities are. We do have projects, and we will work with our staffs to make sure we are in a position to submit a project if the opportunity should arise. I will also mention, similar to what Commissioner Justice mentioned on water quality, we did have a septic to sewer ask in here. It was one project, and I think our utilities team, they're in the process of going through and identifying and prioritizing different areas where septic to sewer conversion you'd get the most bang for the buck. And also another important aspect of that is where you have participation and buy-in from the community, because they need to have skin in this game as well. So I think what we've seen in the past is you've seen individual communities submit appropriations requests through their members for individual water projects, septic to sewer to be exact, and we've benefited from one of those in the past too. But I think long term it is better to set up and establish a program where communities can submit those projects. The state can prioritize those projects to see where they're needed, and then they add funding to fund those projects. And we've heard the same sentiments from both leadership in the House and the Senate. So hopefully we added that, incorporated that into guiding principle number 10. That's something that we'll also be advocating for this year.
Perfect. Yes, Commissioner Eggers.
Commissioner Seal brought up made a comment about her feelings about a regional MPO, and you know, it might be. I know that the MPO itself, there's the sentiments of that group have not been necessarily to follow the efforts to get to a regional MPO. The feeling that the TMA process is a good process, and it's an iterative process, and it maintains representation of local entities, where a larger regional MPO would not. The flip side is, as you mentioned, you're not able to necessarily speak as strongly without an MPO. And maybe that discussion we need to have again at some point here in our group, because there are 4 county commissioners on the MPO, and I think maybe we ought to have that discussion again as to what those benefits are and what the detriments of either system, because I sense that there may be, we're not all in agreement with that. I don't mean sitting around this table, but, or this room, but just in Pinellas County. So it might be a good conversation to have.
Okay, anybody else? I wanted to acknowledge, Commissioner Flowers, we got a request from, I believe it was League of Women Voters, about supporting Medicaid expansion, about writing a letter to the legislature, even though we know what the result will be. And we can bring that up at next week's meeting, I think. Also, I wanted to thank Brian for the call we were just on, the Zoom meeting we were just on with the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Corps of Engineers about the easement project. And as Brian said, we've been trying to get this meeting trying to get to these people for 2 years. And it was a nice conversation, encouraging, I think. We'll see. But we need some word back by the end of the year, I think, because that's the deadline they gave us to get these easements, and we're far, far away from them. But he understood. He has a property on the East Coast, and we'll see what happens. But thank you, Brian, for pushing that along.
Well, thank you for joining us on that call. And before I leave, I do have one final item that I wanted to bring up and get some direction from you all. I received a request some time ago from the city of St. Petersburg. And as you may recall, last year, prior to session, they had a proposal to expand the uses, some clarifying language on the uses of the local infrastructure sales surtax. We didn't have enough information to make a decision at that time. They postponed that. They plan on reintroducing that this year, and they did ask for the support of the county commission. We looked into that, and I believe their interpretation of the statute may be different than ours, and I think they're looking to clarify that language. And after talking to our staff, I don't believe that language is necessary. And I think if we went to the legislature and asked them to open up this important statute, we're talking about the penny for Pinellas here, the risk far outweighs the reward. One of the things we've seen in the last few years is when you open these statutes, there are proposals to increase the threshold to passing these referendums from 50% up to 66.66%. So for that reason, and I have expressed this to staff at the city of St. Petersburg, I would recommend that we don't support that. But I wanted to bring it to you today for your direction.
Well, I would certainly go along with that. Commissioner Long?
Before I would feel comfortable not supporting it, I would like to know exactly what does that mean that they want to open up the uses, because I think several of us that have served in the legislature know that when you open up a statute like that, a lot of bad things can happen.
Right.
And you can get some unanticipated consequences from it as well.
And I can share, I believe you have received a memo on their proposal in the past. However, just for right now, essentially they want to prioritize some of their penny funds on affordable housing, and they believe the language that they would add would expand the ways they can utilize those penny dollars on affordable housing, such as building and such as renovating.
But are you talking about the bed tax?
The penny for Pinellas. It's the local infrastructure sales surtax, known as the penny for Pinellas here. And most of those things that I think they want to do, they have the ability to do now, and they're looking to clarify that. And for that reason, that's why we would recommend against it.
The issue is it's an interpretation. We believe they have the authority right now. That's Joel's interpretation of that.
Well, is somebody telling them they don't?
Probably their attorney.
I know that Don Kroll on my staff has had quite a number of conversations with one of the attorneys that works for the city. Brian has very accurately stated what the position in my office is. We do not believe the change is necessary to accomplish the goals they're seeking to accomplish. And in fact, some of the things that they're a bit hesitant to do, we're already doing because we feel that the language of the statute allows for it. Now, I will tell you that when it comes to tax statutes in particular, we take in my office a pretty conservative approach in interpreting those statutes because that's what case law calls for. Nonetheless, we still feel like we've got some latitude in that statute to accomplish some of the things that I know the city is seeking to clarify, and again, have in fact put those uses to effect, using these funds. Brian very accurately stated what our concerns are. There have been some proposals to modify that statute. As you all know, there's already been a change made to restrict the timing of those referendums to coincide with general elections. So we already no longer have the option to take that forward during a different time frame. But there was also a proposal, as he mentioned, to increase the voting threshold, and that's a pretty substantial risk. And we just don't see it as being warranted given the change that they're proposing.
Right, Commissioner Steele?
So even though this has been communicated, I would suggest that we put it in writing and send it to Mayor Kreisman, either under Jewel's signature and/or maybe Pat's as well.
Great.
Just for the record.
Once again. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, you want to talk about BCC meeting options?
Yes, Commissioner. So at the last meeting, we discussed about virtual option, especially during the pandemic. I had asked Kevin Knudsen. He hasn't been before you to brief yet as a new assistant county administrator, so we wanted to have him outline kind of some of the options and show and kind of walk through those with you and get your direction. And again, and then we can finalize from here.
So we should give him a particularly hard time this morning.
Absolutely. Let's see what he's made of.
All right.
Morning, Chair, Commissioners. Pleasure to be here this morning. I'm Kevin Knudsen with the County Administrator's Office. Last time we met was November 17th, and you gave us some direction on some changes you'd like to see to continue doing virtual public comment during the local state of emergency. In your packet are two documents. One is an explanation of the process that we're going to use to do that, very similar to what you've seen so far with what Brian's been doing in the past and is going to continue to do on next Tuesday, but with some tweaks based on your direction. And the first one is that we're going to require pre-registration for anyone who wants to speak at the meeting. This will allow us to know in advance who is wanting to speak and what the volume of people are. This will be on our website. We're working to blend it into the technology that manages the agenda, and so that will be up in early January and will be available to people up to noon the day before the meeting. And that way, before the meeting happens, we'll know who's going to speak on what different items. The second thing that you asked us to do is combine the citizens to be heard with general agenda items. Now, we cannot move discussion of the public hearings. They have to keep the comments with that. But on the others, we could move them. Now, in our discussions with the clerk of the circuit court, some questions came up about that I think would warrant some additional conversation. And Ms. Carpenter from the clerk's office has been working very closely with us and can represent that office's position on these things.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. And thank you, Commissioners, for giving me an opportunity to speak. Kat Carpenter with the Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller's Office. Kevin, I really have to thank him and his team for thinking about the logistics of how this could work and how we could still facilitate public access virtually to these meetings. From the clerk's office perspective, we really welcome the opportunity to facilitate some of this virtual access to allow for members of the public to participate virtually during the pendency of this pandemic. We just wanted to bring one thing up that was mentioned at the November 17th meeting, just for discussion with the commissioners. One of the things that the commissioners had mentioned is they would like to combine that citizens to be heard with comments about particular agenda items. From the clerk's office perspective, we just wanted to bring a customer service consideration as it relates to that on 3 different levels. The first being is that it may be useful to the citizens who pre-register for a particular agenda item to be able to hear the presentation that is involved with that agenda item, as well as hear the discussion that the commissioners have before making their comments. May also give the commissioners the opportunity to get context as it relates to the citizens' individual comments on that item. And it may eliminate some confusion if an individual does sign up to speak on 4 different items. We would have some questions whether or not they would be speaking for 12 minutes at the beginning of the meeting if we do have that combination. So just something for consideration. There's obviously other considerations as to why you would want it at the beginning of the meeting as well, and especially for those who are working and who may be only able to attend the meeting at the very beginning. So we recognize that, but we just wanted to bring that up. We look forward to working on the logistics of this with marketing and communication with the chairman as well as the county administrator's office. So thank you.
And then one last comment before I'm finished. As we roll this out to the public, one of the things we're going to do is emphasize that there are other ways to provide comment to the BCC. We have an online form that they can fill out. There's a phone number that they can call and leave a message. They can send an email, they can send a letter, and get those comments to you before the meeting as well. So we're going to make sure that we emphasize that there's numerous ways to provide feedback to you.
I guess I don't have any problem with people being able to sign up to talk on item 20 and wait till item 20. I think the main objective is to try to get a handle on how many people we have ahead of time. I don't know if that makes any sense or if it goes counter to what we talked about last time, but Commissioner Justice? No? I thought you, okay. But I think the pre-registration is the important part rather than, yes, Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, I think we're talking virtually right now and not people who decide to come here in person.
Correct. That is correct. They sign up here in person if they're going to speak. They fill out a form.
Right.
They
But
can speak. They
otherwise-
can speak at the beginning or at an item. So,
That is correct.
so the difference being virtual is we're trying to get an idea of the numbers, and you give them a cutoff time the day before, so that if they're doing it virtually, and something of significance, I'm just whatever their definition of significance is, or ours, it might be different, maybe the same, happens between that cutoff date and the meeting, they're basically not able to speak. And that's the only thing that concerns me about it, is that, to the extent that emergencies accepted or highly critical items are accepted, I think it's a good idea to do it ahead of time and have that cutoff time. But there will be times that our residents say, hey, there's something really you all need to know about, and I can't be at the meeting, and they weren't able to do it in time, or they didn't hear about it. And we think that just because we talk about it, the whole county now understands the new rules, and they don't even know the old rules in many cases because they don't call in that often, or come to the meeting. So I think it's going to be really important to have a little flexibility in the system, especially for those things that might be critically important. Thank you.
Commissioner Peters?
So I want to be clear, you want to cut it off at what time the day before?
The registration would be open till noon the day before the meeting.
The noon the day before the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that worries me, because I think the day before the meeting, the night before the meeting, people look at the agenda. I think the morning of the meeting, people look at the agenda. And so you're asking people to plan way out in advance to look at our agendas when a lot of them go, oh, I got a county meetings today, let me look. I mean, I would be okay if you cut it off at 9 o'clock in the morning on the day of, but to cut it off at noon the day before eliminates a lot of people that may have an issue, and it may not even come up into the news until 6 p.m. that it might even be on the agenda, and so they wouldn't even know until 6 p.m. And so I just don't think doing it the noon the day before is is reasonable, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
So for background information, the reason we selected noon was we looked at what other counties were doing similarly, and that was the most popular time because there's a certain amount of time staff needs to be able to develop the list for each item to provide to you. Okay.
Commissioner Justice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess that was I guess I'm still not quite fully understanding the problem we're trying to solve here with doing this. You know, we went through how many ever months we've been doing this now, 9 months, and we had, you know, situations with the beach or the mask early on where Brian would say there's 10 callers, and the next time Brian would say there's 38 callers, and so I get that, but that hasn't been the case in the last few meetings. So is that the problem we're solving, or is the pre-registration for some other reason to collect data? I guess I'm just not fully understanding the problem we're trying to solve, and especially with public participation kind of subsiding back to what I would consider more normal.
Well, I think my objective was to kind of get back to where the way we operate when we're in a face-to-face meeting, where people sign up and then they wait for the item to come up. I think one of the things that also happened, you know, in addition to having, you know, 38 people waiting, is people ringing back in over and over to comment either on the same item or on different items because they got mad about the way you handled the item before, and, you know, they call in on the next 12 items because they want to punish you. But yes, you're right, it hasn't been an issue before, but also, you know, at some point, we're actually going to get back to face-to-face meetings where people are sitting in the audience and they have input.
And,
So-
you know, we've worried about that when we've talked about, and every year I've been on here, we've talked about some way of shuffling this a little around, and that, you know, if someone got mad, if they're sitting in the audience and they got mad, they could go fill out the card for every item.
That's true.
That's never happened.
Well, it's happened to me.
I mean, I've never, so I guess that if you had, I would have no problem if you said, we're going to go to agenda 12, you have 30 seconds, 60 seconds to raise your hand in the Zoom, something like that, to where you don't have the add-on. If you wanted something like that, I think would be perfectly fine. The whole thing about noon the day before, kind of not completely comfortable with, I guess.
Well, it also just sort of drags out the meeting when Brian or somebody else has to announce, okay, we're on item 12, anybody have, we'll wait here for you to raise your hand and to fix your Zoom, and, you know.
I guess I understand. It's messier now, but that's kind of the world we're in right now, I guess.
That's the truth. Commissioner Steele.
I actually think in some ways this makes it more consumer friendly because they won't be having to try to redial, or wait, and not know whether they're going to be called on Zoom. So I honestly think this is more respectful of people's time because they'll be pre-registered, they'll be called in an orderly way, and I think during this time while we're doing virtual meetings that is probably a good way to go. When we go back to in-person meetings, I'm sure it'll change. But we're having to manage virtual reality and, you know, Zoom and everything else these days. So I also had a concern about the noon cutoff, but I understand it. Maybe we could at least do it to 2 or 3 o'clock instead. I understand not doing it at 5 or after because then we're asking people to work overtime to manage this. And I think, with all respect, doing it closing it off at 9 a.m. may be hard if we had 100 requests or something like that. So I know this is a work in progress. The only other part that I would like to request is we have agenda changes all the way up sometimes until Monday evening. That's going to have to stop with this. If we're going to be transparent to the public, they need to be able to read and see the agenda. A finalized agenda, I would say no later than Friday morning. And so that would give them the weekend to register and weigh in advance of Tuesday's meeting. So understand why there's sometimes some changes, but we need to have a cutoff time so that that full agenda is available to the public.
I'm sure there's a few times where we've had to add an item like it's a grant.
It's been
But very few.
a lot,
Oh,
in my opinion, because
really?
I have now gotten to the point where I wait sometimes till Monday evening to read the finalized agenda because I'm frustrated with trying to go back and see, well, this has been added or that's been added. And I know staff is very busy and they're trying to do their best to keep us updated, but we just need to have a cutoff time so that it is legitimately available to the public.
Mr. Peters?
So I understand the issue about every agenda item, and we did have a lot of times where someone was calling in on every agenda item to talk about things that weren't that agenda. So I think moving that, all the public comment just being at the front end, which is not uncommon in local government to do. So I think that takes care of that, and if that was the biggest concern, then I think that takes care of that, and all the public comment happens at one time, whether it's 10 people or 100 people, it all happens at one time, and then there isn't that in between every single agenda item, other than the public hearings, which is very different. I think that's a better solution than any kind of cutoff registration. Just they get one shot at it, they're only talking at the one time in the beginning, and there isn't item 12 and having to remember to go back and Brian say, because that does take up more time, but I'm really apprehensive about doing the registration, but if you put it all at once, and I agree with you, Madam Chair, that that is a problem. We did have a problem, and it was a constant problem. But by putting it all in the front end, you're eliminating that one problem that seems to be the biggest problem. And so if that's the problem we want to solve, if you put it all at the front end in the beginning, then I still think it leaves everybody the opportunity to have their say in a public meeting without it being too cumbersome on the repeat callers calling in. So that's just my opinion, but I still wouldn't support that registration ending at noon.
The item we were really trying to get at is to get Brian out of facilitating the meeting to where it becomes a normal meeting, and that can be done, by the clerk. And so that way she has a list and she can call upon that list. I think that's the big change. The big change is, right, the way we're doing it now is Brian is managing through a virtual environment, and people are coming in, and so he has to manage that along with the meeting and working with the chair. That's been the staff-intensive resource that we're trying to move away from, and that's how we come up and looked at other jurisdictions and how they're managing during this virtual environment. And that's what we found, is that they had a registration process. Regardless of whatever time you want to cut that off, it then becomes, we have a list, and we're working off that list. And then it just makes it manageable.
Can I ask you a question?
Eggers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting back to the way Commissioner Justice said. I'm trying to understand the problem and the mechanics that we're talking about that is so cumbersome. We have backed into this virtual option during this pandemic, and I think it has been a great way for people to access government. Even after the emergency is over with, we've always tried to figure out how to get people involved. And so to me, if we do anything that cuts back on that, it's a negative. Now, those are like 30,000-foot comments. The details is where the problems lie, and I get that. But the more I've thought about it, I think perhaps the cutoff is too early. I think we need to move from that. I am worried, as Kat said, about the person who might have a perspective on an item, and maybe it's I'm just going to make it up. It's not a public hearing, but it's a name change of Philippi Park and we're telling them that they have to comment on it at the beginning of a meeting. And in truth, we may have a presentation that's very good and gets a lot of public meeting results, and you talk about it, and those comments are more fitting after they've heard the presentation itself. So to just say it has to be all front-loaded, if we're going to base this on the fact that we could have a repeat person who's just got an attitude that we've experienced this past year, I think we're not going to develop a good system. And the system needs to be built around a more productive way of doing this. And if we have to deal with an occasional person who does that, then we have to deal with that. But I don't want the system to be set up that way. So I kind of like the idea that we have access when the meeting, when the item on the agenda that they're interested in. And if we have to figure out a way, not to include Brian, of course, but somebody else in staff to do it, then that's on us to figure that out. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel. And I know it's going to be a little bit extra work, but we got to figure out ways to get people accessing us, and I think this is a great way to do it. So I'm going to support anything that does that, and I think I agree more. I've thought about it. The noon cutoff is just too early. And maybe the compromise is at the end of the day, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, so that you can pull it together for the next morning.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this for those people that have to compose the list, but I think 5 o'clock is perfectly reasonable and something that people might expect. Most of the time, we're only going to have 2 or 3 people commenting.
And I was just kind of looking over to, Kate, who's going to have to do that. I mean, but that's okay. At least, even if we had a cutoff time, then they can kind of plan accordingly and prepare that list.
And I will say from the clerk's office perspective, and Kevin can speak to this a little bit more, marketing and communications is the one who was planning on gathering that list and developing that form. So they would be better to speak about the 5 o'clock deadline. We are flexible as far as receiving the list. If we receive it 30 minutes before the meeting, we can make that work as well. So,
okay, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question, Barry, you were saying, Brian is the issue, but if we were to, and I agree completely with Commissioner Eggers that I think everybody should have an opportunity to talk. But if we were going to look to try and free up Brian, if we did everything on the front end and not each individual thing, would Brian then be done after public comment, and then he wouldn't have to be there for every individual to facilitate, because he wouldn't have to ask, is there any public comments on agenda item 12?
Well, if you have a registration process, okay, so let's break it down. If you have a registration process, we don't need Brian. That can be done through communications and with the clerk, and so you'll have a list. In other words, regardless of the time, then we say, here's the list, and they work from that, just like we do at a regular meeting.
Just like a regular meeting.
Except it's now
What
being
if we
virtual.
didn't have a registration process?
Well, then I've got to have somebody that can actually facilitate the meeting, be able to call upon people to sign in, and they have to go into the technology and look and see who's in there while managing the meeting. So that's
But this is my question,
big skill
because
set.
I understand that's what's happening today.
yes.
But if we only did public comment at the very beginning of the meeting,
Oh,
I'm
you
not
mean
talking
all of it?
about public hearings, and that way they didn't make a comment on item 12 or 30 or 29. They only did the very beginning of the meeting. Brian doesn't have to facilitate it after public comment then.
True.
So then it would only take up, just the public comment part of Brian, and that would eliminate that, and he'd have the rest of the day to do what he has to do. Am I correct on that? So if we
Yes.
had no registration, then we'd only need Brian for public comment, and that would be it, and that would...
You could, but I will tell you, I really need to get Brian back to being a department director. So whether I have to use communications for that function or however, we really need to free that up. So, we have other people that have very good skills to be able to facilitate, and, so we can certainly accommodate whatever you want us to do. But I think as you've seen, Brian has a really good skill set of both operating the technology and moderating, kind of the meeting flow. That is a skill set, and he's been very good at it. Having some process in place would make it easier for somebody else to be able to manage that. But again, it's whatever you decide, we can accommodate.
So as long as we're having a meeting where there's public comment or where there's public hearings, we're still going to have somebody that can...
Correct.
Wait, that we'll still have to have somebody that can let that caller when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Well, so if we had... Hold on. Let me get this thought out. So if the chair is able to have this list and say, okay, we're on item 3, we have one person would like to speak, assuming that person is on the call or on the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, well, you missed your shot. So I don't have any problem with waiting for them for the item to come up, because I like the idea of having them comment on what's actually happening rather than something they think might happen. So is that a big problem as long as we have a pre-prepared list where we're not guessing and we're not having to announce every time, please unmute yourself, and, well, we would have to, but at least we know who we're talking to.
I'll let these guys answer. They've been working on this, so.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem for us to do that. The pre-registration process that you had suggested earlier helped us with that because it let us know who was going to be coming to those sections and wanting to speak. But we've been able to handle it in the past, as the commissioner pointed out, and we can continue to do that if that's the way you want to do it.
Okay. It also helps, let me tell you, Dave, if you have a card in front of you or a list,
Yeah.
and you know somebody's going to, you don't have to announce it every time. Do we have somebody who would like to speak on item 4, which I forget half the time, you know, and then somebody has to remind me, oh, you didn't ask for any public comment.
Yeah, well, that's not likely to change, that reminder. I'm going to.
Well, if you have a list that
I
says,
know.
okay,
I
item
hear you.
6, you
It'll
got
help.
2 colors, you know, it helps, that would help a lot. I mean, the way it happens in a normal meeting is you got these cards, and this one says item 4, this one says item 7. Commissioner Peters.
In the meeting, don't you have to say that anyways? Even if you don't have cards, don't you say, is there anybody, you know, that didn't fill out a card, don't you?
No.
You know, I'm just remembering in my days, and I always, when I was mayor, I always had to say, well, no, I didn't, because we put everything in the front. Because we didn't like that, we didn't like the process, so we put everything in the front end, and then there wasn't that, so.
Right.
But,
I
but
think
I didn't recall that you said it every single time, just that you had the cards.
I think the situation where we'll continue to need to open it up is under your public hearings. Now, the statute that provides citizens the right to speak on all of your other agenda items also gives you, as the governing body, the ability to enact a procedure. And once you enact that procedure, and it may very well be this one that requires the pre-registration and what other guidelines you impose, the law says that if you follow it, you are deemed to have given everybody their adequate opportunity to address it. So whatever you all come up with, as long as you follow it and there's a procedure and policy in place, you'll be fine on the non-public hearing items.
As long as we remember it from one week to the next. Mr. Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think we've gotten way down into the weeds of the process. But if we have registration and folks, we have a list of 10 names, then someone else has the technical ability to let that person in and doesn't have to be Brian?
Yes.
But that person doesn't have the ability to regulate if we don't have registration.
It's a little bit more difficult, but like I said earlier, if you give us direction, we will work out how to make it happen.
I mean, I don't like the registration the day before. I mean, I think if you had it up till, you know, whatever, 7 p.m. or whatever, 8 p.m., person comes in the next morning at 8 a.m.,
They could come in
they'd
early.
have enough time to put the list. And again, this is going to be the rare issue that comes up. I mean, we do have probably one coming up in January that's going to get a crowd potentially. But otherwise, you know, I don't know. Again, I go back to the problem we're solving, but, and I don't know, I am on other boards where we do the comments all front-loaded, but there is value in having it as part of the actual discussion. I feel like sometimes we're setting a framework for the exception rather than the rule. Right. So, I don't know. I don't know where I was at the beginning of this. I'm completely turned around now, so.
Well, as I recall, when I was mayor, we also had it all in the beginning except for public hearings. So, and I think that does make it more convenient for the person who's wanting to make a comment on some random item or no item at all.
As opposed to waiting hours.
Right.
There's some value there, too.
All right. So what did we come down with? Is that the current chair or the next chair? I'm sure Dave and I could come to consensus on that, but, okay, so sign up until 5, 9, midnight the day before? What do you like? they're going to come in the morning and look at it anyway. Could be midnight for
Can I ask
that
another
matter.
question?
Yes.
So let's say somebody has a general comment, but also wants to address two of the items.
Well, they can do that.
So they tell you that ahead of time. They're signing up, they're going to address two of those things. So they get on at the beginning and they make their comment.
Right.
They hang up. They can come back on later for their comment. They don't
Absolutely.
have to stay online
That is
the
correct.
whole time and wait for their comment. So so I think you can address that person coming back 3 times, as long as they're registered ahead of time. And I think the idea is that you can still come down here in person. There's still that option available to you, like we have every other meeting. This is an extra thing that we're trying to use to accommodate residents even at a higher level than we would normally. And so to have a pre-registration to do that, I think is a good thing. And if we have a cutoff time, whatever, the day before, it has to be in the afternoon late, I think. And the only other thing, I'm going to just, if there's an emergency out there, I want people to be able to call in and say, I wasn't registered, but I think somebody needs to know about this. Now, maybe they wouldn't call the commission meeting. They call, utilities or something. But we, again, we're setting up, I think, for the rule rather than the exception. And I think that's the thing we got to keep remembering, because there's going to be something that destroys our system. Probably.
Mr. Incoming Chair, that'll
Yes.
be your prerogative,
Yeah.
but don't do it too often. Or you'll have a revolt.
Revolt here, you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Does that make,
Well, I think if we can get some direction.
Oh,
about
time.
One,
Cutoff
do you
time.
want all the individual items at the front of the meeting or during the agenda item? That's one question. And then what time do you want the pre-registration deadline?
I'm okay with 5 o'clock, and I think individual items are fine, just like they would be if everybody was sitting in a room.
And when they register.
If they want to wait, if they want to do it in the beginning, maybe there should be an option. I want to talk on item 9, but I'll do it in the beginning. That way they don't have to wait. I think that, going back to customer service, I think that's more,
Yeah.
I'd like to, we should get some input from
Yeah, I think that's a
Mr.
good idea.
Geddes back there. So, is that all right?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So somehow on the card, give them an option whether they want to do it under general comment or the item itself.
And they're still going to have 3 minutes, so
Yeah.
Right.
they could make a general comment and then come back for another additional 3 minutes on that item, or they could do it up front, but they still only have 3 minutes.
Right. But just like in the regular meeting, we'll ask, if you're going to make a general, if you want to speak on an item, please wait for that item.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah, that's going to be.
this is your chance.
Yeah.
Okay? We'll try that, and it might change 2
We'll
weeks.
try it.
from
I'm
now.
sure we'll have discussions after the first time we do it. But we'll put this out. We'll put a format out, and then we'll advertise that and get that out, and then, we'll be prepared for the first meeting in January to run it that way.
Okay? All right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up?
Next up is
Agenda
the
briefing.
agenda briefing. So if you look at your packet, item 1 is public comment. 2 and 3 are items from the the clerk of the circuit court.
Just to go back to the previous item, we are going to give people a grace period. We'll put this, this has already been noticed, so we can't say anything about that.
Oh, we're talking about a January meeting, not Tuesday.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
somehow we'll put a notice up there ahead of time that says, as of January, we will be changing our process.
Okay.
And we'll give them a meeting or 2 to get used to. All right.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe we could do that at the end of the meeting
right.
on Tuesday.
That's a good idea.
Just maybe get online and see what the new accessing options for the public will be. Some
Right.
additional accessing options will be available, and we can show them online, so they have 30 days or whatever till the next meeting to kind of,
The registration and stuff. I'm not
may
sure.
not be ready for that.
I don't know if we're going to be ready
Or
for it.
we
or
could
not.
just give them a heads up that
We'll
stay
just tell them,
tuned, we're
yeah.
going to be doing that.
We
Check
can do
in.
that. We can make
Okay.
sure that we announce it.
Yeah.
and-
Okay.
Items 2 and 3 are Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller items. Next, 4 through 7 are reports received for filing.
Barry, I had a question. I'm sorry. On number 4, there was a specific case there from our investigative group, and it seemed like it was. I just want to make sure I understood. Was that outside-driven complaint, and how did we not know about it ourselves? And we don't necessarily have to get into it today, but it just seemed like this was driven by an outside complaint, but maybe it wasn't, and it would be helpful to know that, because we have GPS and all of that available to us. So this was a misuse of county time and equipment. So I just want to make sure. I don't know what our procedures and policies are normally. So
I was trying to. I think it was actually driven by us, but I got to get that case. I don't remember the case, and I'm trying to pull it up, and my password isn't working.
Okay, Kat, you don't, do you know?
Sorry, I'm having a technology issue. Jill, do you want to address that?
Well,
Good morning, Jill Silverboard, Deputy County Administrator. That's correct, Mr. Administrator. It was an internal, it was made known to us internally.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a story there.
And so we initiated it and resolved it.
I know my question is if that report if that person hadn't come forward and filed the complaint, it seemed like there was a real track record of that problem that we should have been able to catch in our system without having to have somebody complain about it. And I'm just wondering how our system is being amended to do a better job of proactively instead of waiting for a complaint.
Right, so the policies actually exist. So it wasn't for lack of policies, it was for lack of following existing policies that happened in this particular case, but tends to happen. You mentioned GPS. We are in the process of obtaining a organizational-wide GPS system. Right now, each departments have different platforms, and over time, we haven't ensured that consistency. So that's a project we're working on now. There are sensitivities to and how one uses GPS data, and I'm looking at the county attorney right now, as it relates to employees and discipline. But we're working on a series of those things, but policies are in place. We just need to make sure they're being followed.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was getting at. Just that, if an employee does something that they don't even realize it's probably outside, many times, you just have to remind folks, like, here's the policies. Remember, we've showed it to you before, but here, because I think a lot of times it's just innocent. I'm not saying in this case, but,
Well, there is an onboarding component that covers much of this as well. So, I think it is more your point about over time, maybe there should be refreshers.
Okay, thank you.
Items 8 through 10 are miscellaneous and receipt for filing. Item 11 is declaring surplus and authorize the sale of county-owned equipment. This is sale of vehicles and equipment. This is from our rolling stock, so it's not available for donation because proceeds go back to our fleet management fund. We do make those items available for people to look at and give them advance notice, but it is a sell. Item 12 is a rank and affirms with Wells Fargo for banking services. This is working with the Clerk of the Circuit Court. They were the highest ranking firm. Item 13 is rank and affirms an agreement with Destination Analyst for development and implementation of integrated destination marketing research studies for the CBB. Item 14 is receipt and file for delegated items. Item 15 is a resolution supplementing the fiscal year 2021 general budget for unanticipated revenues from the Public Defender's Office. This is an award of $1.2 million over a 3-year period for Criminal Justice, Mental Health, and Substance Abuse Reinvestment Grant Program. This will expand the Public Defender's crossover program for children and with the road and fund the Road to Success. Item 16 is a ranking of firms with Stantec Consulting. This is where we're going to look at our surface water assessment, governance, and rate study. But this hasn't been done in several years, and so this will get them back on a review of whether our rates and everything are appropriately allocated.
Items 17 and 18 are two lawsuits we will be defending. These both arise from an automobile accident. They actually relate to an employee of the Pinellas County School Board, so we'll simply be moving to get the county out of this lawsuit. These lawsuits. It is not uncommon for us to get lawsuits in this nature where we've just been mistaken for another entity that has Pinellas County in the name.
Item 19 is our annual update to our countywide plan map, incorporating all the items that have changed. Item number 21 is a tourism promotion agreement with Tampa Bay Super Bowl host committee in support of the upcoming Super Bowl.
Yes, Commissioner Justice, sorry.
Thank you. I read the entire report, and I'm glad that there is a wrap-up report, if you will, I think 45 days after the event. But what I didn't see, and maybe I missed it, was the time frame by which they would have to cure any issues after that final wrap-up report. I may have missed it.
Steve Hayes is in the audience. He could come forward and answer your questions.
I mean, I would hope that there would be no issues or concerns, but you know, what would be the time frame that they would have to, if it's financial, to wrap that up or clean that up or whatever the issues may be after the final report? Good morning.
On that, we would ensure that when they give us that report, it is final, it's clean, it's everything that we need to have. And I believe in previous interactions with them as the host committee, but also for other events, they have provided everything that we needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Justice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this arrangement, I guess, comparable to other Super Bowls? And my question, I guess, goes to the point of we don't know whether there's going to be 60,000 people there or 20,000 people there, and how that will roll into the kind of crowds that will come for the pre-week festivities and all those kind of things. And so I'm just trying to figure out if we're paying first-rate rates and we're going to get, you know, a different rate of actual attendance and participation locally. Since it's not for necessarily television time. I mean, we get a little bit of that, but it's for the exposure to visitors, and that's where I'm trying to figure out of what we're paying for versus what would be a traditional Super Bowl, which I don't think anyone thinks we're going to have a traditional crowd.
In the Soup Commissioner, for this year's Super Bowl, because there is an unknown to some of it, there is a known aspect to it. So example being on the media side. In our agreement with them, we've asked for that presence not only in the media center, in which we're working closely with Visit Tampa Bay to have a immersive experience about the area, so it's being done jointly. Second is an activation space, previously which would have been something like the NFL experience, but again, a place that folks can go to that celebrates the whole experience of the game itself. And so you're talking about consumers. And again, they may be here for the game. It may be locals that just want to experience of everything that's going on. And then the other element to it is what can we get visibility-wise, because the media is coming down. Whether it's ESPN doing their shoot from wherever, and we've got B-roll showing up that's talking about the Pinellas beaches or arts and culture, whatever that might be. And then actually during the game itself, what visibility we can get on TV, because that's going to be, I think, one of the bigger things.
And well, two other questions. One, I saw that Hillsborough TDC was listed at $3 million and Visit Tampa Bay was listed at $1 million. And I didn't know what the difference between Hillsborough TDC funds were versus Visit Tampa Bay funds, because I thought that was the same thing. Do you know?
Yeah, past experience, I have a little bit of knowledge there. So in their case, their TDC, which funds Visit Tampa Bay and also funds the Sports Commission, it's a separate pot of money that they have versus what's in the Visit Tampa Bay budget or what's in the Tampa Bay Sports Commission budget.
That's interesting. And then I certainly don't want to get into it today, but I would like to hear what the process that you guys are going to have, and certainly I don't want any part of it, is I see there's several things, 10 seats here, 10 tickets there, what your process will be. Who are the people that we're going to use that to woo for future investment in our tourism dollar?
Steve can speak to that, and very specific around exactly that. It's a tourism promotion, economic development promotion, but those things that generate future tourism business or economic development.
And I would assume that afterwards we'll see, or whenever we'll see a list of who.
We absolutely can. Yeah, those are going to be used for business purposes.
That's what I wanted to hear.
No, you don't get one.
I do not want one.
I don't either. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you, Commissioner Seal?
I guess, could you send us the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 that was presented? Because I didn't see that in the background. I see the Super Bowl presentation, but I'd like to just look that over. I do. I think given the realities of what's going on with COVID, I hesitate to think that we're spending this much money, because I'm not sure that we're going to end up with the heads and beds. I understand the TV publicity part of it, but I can't imagine that we're going to see a huge increase of room nights, which is usually why we support this.
Commissioner, on your first question, whether Tier 1, 2, or 3, was that related to like elite event funding? Was that where you were going with that question?
Well, it said at your meeting that you were presented different options.
Yes.
Tier A, Tier B, and Tier C.
Okay. I'm sorry. What that was is originally when the host committee came and presented to the TDC or talked to the TDC, they had a dollar amount that they threw out. It was $1.5 million. And then we came back later and said, really don't feel that we can support it at that level. Can you give us 3 options? And so that was the Tier 1, 2, and 3, and then benefits of that sponsorship accordingly within those tiers. And again, coming back in terms of the room revenue, we went back. Well, as one example, we went back and looked at the value of the benefits. So in other words, we took, whether it was, number of room nights that were coming in, whether it was visibility, to assign a value to it. So even from the hotel standpoint, I think we went very conservative on the number, knowing that we're not going to have probably the volume we've had in the past, but we still know people are coming in based on some of the blocks that are going through and filling up. I think the other part of it is, how do we make the most of the media visibility if we don't get the same number of fans? How do we get that visibility so that carries on, which gets us business later on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
All right.
Item number 22 is a local arts funding agreement with Creative Pinellas. This is an amount of $718,000, $537,000 from the Tourist Development Fund, $145,000 from General Fund, and $36,000 from the Transportation Trust Fund.
Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have previously Commissioner Welch was on the board. Is there a commissioner that will be going on how is that? You? Okay.
Yes.
Item number 23, we previously discussed. This is the ad valorem tax exemption performance agreement between you and Jabil for the expansion. They're investing $11.7 million.
Barry, and I'm sorry, I didn't get into all of the attachments yet. is there something in here that shows the amount that they are giving to the county now that they are paying on a recurring basis as far as property taxes go? And, you know, I mean, this is showing what we're giving up for a period of time, but can we bring that to the table to show people?
Yes.
What, not only jobs that are being provided, I mean, that's a given, that's what drives this mostly, but also that other commitment, intangible and property taxes, that they are paying.
Yes.
We're giving them a break on an incremental piece for a period of time. But I think it's good to have that perspective.
So I'll ask staff, Kevin's writing it down, so we'll break down both jobs, retention, expansion, and investment, and property taxes that they're currently paying.
Because there's an awful lot that's going on that is good. This is just a break on the new stuff, so.
Right.
Right. Commissioner Flowers?
Thank you. Just a question. I understand the job performance guidelines that are here in the attachments, but there have been times when Jabil has, in fact, moved forward with layoffs. Is there anything, Jewel, in the language that speaks to, for example, if they lay off 15 people, our contract says they're going to hire 30, but they've laid off 15 people, which means they've only really met 15 of the threshold. Is there anything in the contract that speaks to that? Because they've had some layoffs, and I'm just concerned with the job performance piece of this.
If you can, let me take a look at this, and we'll be prepared to answer either between now and Tuesday or at Tuesday's meeting, just to get you a correct answer.
Or you can call me in between, you know, if
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next.
Item number 24 is a grant award with the Department of Justice. This is a 2020 DNA capacity enhancement for backlog reduction. What this pays for is 1.5 DNA analysts and with the necessary equipment. Item number 25 is a grant award from the Department of Justice for 2020 comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse site-based programs. This is it was awarded $1.1 million to expand the co-occurring existence recovery and empowerment team. Grants proposed for a 3-year period. There's no match or cost sharing within the program. So this is a significant enhancement to our opioid initiative. And so this is, and I know Human Services staff worked very hard on receiving this.
Yeah, Commissioner Peters.
Barry, I know they took a tweak on their substance abuse program that they were going to do, and they were going to present it to us, but I don't think they ever did. And maybe this is a good time for them to bring it back to us and kind of present. Maybe not this week, but soon.
Oh, you mean on the
changes that were made.
Funding we're currently doing? Lourdes is here, so she could certainly address it.
You know, we had talked on the phone, and it was different than the presentation that this board saw, and I thought it was a really good one. There's an article that came out today about the number of overdoses nationwide that I'm going to forward to all of you. And I know in Pinellas County, I don't have the numbers right now, but we're probably going to have 100 more deaths this year than last year, and we had 100 more deaths last year than we did the year before. So that's a 200 death increase in a 2-year period. And so I think the plan that the Human Services they came up with is really good. And you all haven't heard the details on it, I don't believe. And so maybe in the future, near future, if we could bring that back, I think it would be really good.
So if we could frame it, what Commissioner's talking about is, you know, you have authorized $500,000, I believe that's the right amount, in this year's budget addressing this. They're trying to design a program where we integrate into particular hospitals where we have high opioid cases and overdose cases. They've been trying to work through the mechanics of how that, and I think Lourdes had previously presented a program that Dr. Jameson has worked on and is familiar with, that she saw when she was actually up in New York. And so they're trying to integrate themselves within the hospitals. It's a slow-moving effort. There's a lot of work that's going into that. We can certainly do a work session where we go into greater detail. We're struggling with success, you know, and trying to engage people to get them interested in partnering with us. But I'll turn it over to Lourdes for
Sure,
any
thanks.
clarifications on that.
Lourdes Benedict, Assistant County Administrator, and our plan is to provide an update. We did a presentation in July that hopefully you remember, that Daisy did. Then we provided an update to the PowerPoint, including this, where this was pending, this grant that we're very excited about. Mid-September, I sent that out to the board, and we plan to do an update for our strategic planning session.
Okay.
And everything Barry said is absolutely correct. We've been working with 2 of our local hospitals on the program that you provided us to move forward on, that we learned in Buffalo, working in the hospitals. That has been very slow-moving, and it's no fault of our staff. We've had several meetings, several trainings, and I think because of COVID, I think that's part of it. The hospitals are overwhelmed. So I'm hoping that's the case. So we're going to be moving on to some other hospitals and give other hospitals an opportunity if we don't hear back soon. But I've met with the CEOs of those hospitals. We've provided training, something that we're very excited about still.
And what this really does is it links them right to program. You know, it's that direct handoff, and that's so they don't walk out the door. We treat it, we send them out the door, and then we, you know, they come back in, and we are dealing with it over and over again. So it's a benefit to the hospital, you know, from a capacity standpoint, but it's a huge benefit of having that direct access and community of care to put the resources around the person right there.
And that's absolutely right. It's a huge return on investment to the hospital, as well as the person obviously getting treatment right then and there. I mean, their treatment actually starts in the ED. Right.
Okay.
And this is just a piece of that puzzle, the one from today, so we're
Money
real
always
excited.
helps, and so we're very thankful for this grant, and good job on the Human Services team for getting that. Item 26 is Affordable Housing Advisory Committee report on the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program, Affordable Housing Incentives. Item number 27 is the 15-year review for the City of St. Petersburg In-Town Community Redevelopment Trust Fund. The staff has reviewed that. Staff believes that the report provides substantial evidence that it meets the review criteria and has been effective and utilized for the planned projects.
Question. Yeah, just,
Sorry, go ahead.
and so that justification for continuing it will be clearly laid out.
Correct.
Because we have other CRAs that are going to be following suit that are going to get our scrutiny as well. And I just want to make sure that we understand how that downtown site still warrants another, what is it, another 15 years or another 7.5? I don't know. I don't remember which. 15 years of tax money, not only from us but from the city's coffers too. So even if we decide to back away on monies from us, the city still has the ability under a CRA to direct its incremental monies to that area too.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that there's some discussion about that.
And Evan's going to be here to present this item, and we're going to go through that. In January, you're going to have a CRA discussion talking about the broader policies that we've discussed with you a few times in the structure of how these reviews go and how we're managing them kind of going forward, and especially as new ones come on and then that review period. So, yeah, yes.
So are you just doing a presentation for information on this item and bringing it back later, or is this to?
No, we're bringing it in because we have to complete this within a time period.
Okay, so we won't have that presentation, so.
Not at this
I understand,
meeting.
so if we could just have some of that a little bit at the meeting.
We'll be able to discuss the parameters on how this fits in with the broader policies that we're going to bring into you in January.
Thank you.
We absolutely can do that.
Thank you.
Item number 28 is a change order number 1 to the United Healthcare Specialty Services contract. When we initiated the contract, it was just an oversight. They didn't bring in the long-term disability services into that contract, so we're just adding that back in. It's no budgetary change. It was budgeted. It was just left off the initial contract.
Under item number 29, this is an action for the board to approve the public official bonds that were just procured for our newly elected public officials, which of course is 4 of you here with us today, as well as 4 of our constitutional officers. you all have a resolution that establishes the bond amounts for each of the public officers, and you do not require one for the supervisor of elections, which is why you see 4 constitutionals instead of 5. And I don't anticipate anything under county attorney reports for this meeting.
I will have a few county administrator reports. Item 32 is reappointments to the Feather Sound Community Services District. These are individual appointments by Commissioners Peters, Justice, Long, Egger, Seal, and Gerard. 33 is appointments to the Golf Consortium. 34 is appointments to the Lellman CRA. And by the way, we are preparing for you to have a CRA meeting as the CRA board for Lellman, and so we will be bringing that back right after the first of the year. 35 are appointments to the Historic Preservation Board. Lots of appointments. 36 to the Pinellas Park Water Management District. 37 is reappointments to the Unified Personnel Board. And there was a change. Reappointing Jeff is through 2022, not 2023. 38 is appointments to the Youth Advisory Committee. And next is assignments to the 2021 committees and boards by the chair-elect. Questions? Item 41.
Oh, Barry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Just real quickly, you talked about some of the Lellman CRA, and it kind of prompted my thinking on this. Well, the downtown Palm Harbor activities, there's a lot going on internally. And there's a lot, and I had a meeting with Nancy McKibben this week, was really great meeting. And really, again, thank you for that, because it's really working out, that representation. But I thought it might be a good subject matter either for a workshop or a meeting to kind of update kind of where we are, what's going on, what we've done, what we've passed, what's still in the process, and what's happening in the marketplace, because there's just an awful lot going on there. And I think residents might want to hear about it too. Okay. And it's still a work in progress, but
we can do that. I'd actually like to see all 3 of the assistant twos present on their particular areas. Okay. Because they have work plans. I will tell you, I'm very proud of the work they're doing out in their particular areas. I mean, I had one yesterday where we're trying to work in. This is over in the Ridgecrest area, and it was a communication issue. But Brian's on it. He's there. He's engaging. So it's so important to have that kind of hands on the ground, trying to pull people together to make something happen. It does make a big difference.
It's huge, because in the past it's really been a commissioner or 2 or 3 that bring ideas forward, and it's great to have somebody from staff out there because they start to understand what's going on with our residents, but also sometimes how difficult it is to bring departments together on an issue, and it's not easy, and that job allows that to happen.
You have,
so I think
little silos. Yeah. And you need someone to
sometimes
bring
it really
everything
helps,
together.
So it really helps pulling it together. So I wanted to say that was one.
So we'll do that. We'll bring them in and have that.
And the second thing I just wanted to mention, one of my colleagues here called because she was asking me about Tampa Bay Water update on some item on that, and I was, maybe I've been remiss as a representative to that board to just give an update. I can't get into a lot of details, but I just assumed again that people were aware of what was going on at Tampa Bay Water. All good stuff out there in the workforce. City of Tampa had a problem yesterday or the day before yesterday on some water issues. We were right there. They called us, and we were responsive, and we were ready. In fact, we started to provide additional water to that. So it's a really good system set up for droughts, multiple sources of water, but also if one of our member governments is having a problem, especially the City of Tampa, who provides most all of their own water. When they have a problem, we're their backup, and I think it really went well. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we had the general manager's review in August. and I did not rank him well. But generally speaking, it was such that we moved forward without any action that meeting because of the reviews from other people. There was an anonymous letter sent that talked about him, and specifically about that. The board at that time said, well, if anybody wants to come forward to the chair. And so I spent 2 months, and they were grueling months, talking to board members about, or excuse me, no. Wrong.
Well, I hope.
Talking, yeah, exactly. That'd get me in a lot of trouble. But talking to staff members that did come forward. I mean, they came forward to me, and so because of that, I had asked him to resign. He refused that. I brought it to the meeting in October for termination. The board then said, uh-oh, we didn't realize so many people were going to be coming forward, so we want a more formal investigation. And they've been conducting that investigation since then, and that investigation results are now in our hands, and we will be having that as a part of the discussion on Monday to consider the termination request that I had made in October. It really comes down to, it's pretty simple, that we have a lot going on at Tampa Bay Water in the next 5 to 10 years, and my confidence in this person is such that I think it's a good time to make a change. That's really the impetus behind it. Staff's input that I got was reaffirming. So I just want to kind of let everybody know what was going on. There will be consideration for that on Monday. He can either be terminated, there can be some other negotiated thing, or he can keep his job, depending on what the board decides to do at that meeting. That investigation has involved the 18 upper level people have been interviewed, and those results are private now and will be made public after the meeting on Monday. So I just wanted everybody to understand what was going on. The work at Tampa Bay Water before that and since then continues. I'm really proud of the team, the team that has continued to move elements forward, including reaching out and talking to almost every one of our Swift Mud board members as a way to kind of let them know what we're doing at Tampa Bay Water. Great work, great stuff going on, but I don't think I'd really talked to anybody, to the group about that. So I just wanted to give a brief update. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. And staff being responsive as they are, always are, the time where the 3 assistants will be brought in, that was already scheduled for April. So I just didn't remember.
Oh. Okay, well, thank you.
They were all over it. Okay, item 41 is a map amendment from the city of Tarpon Springs, residential low medium to preservation, 2.3 acres. It's part of a larger 15-acre site. Approval for this, so this is for a 50-lot subdivision. However, a portion of the property has been identified as non-title. So they're going to set that aside.
Do you have a question? Oh, okay, sure.
And this was recommended unanimously. Item 42, City of St. Petersburg, from a map amendment from residential medium to multimodal corridor. It's 0.14 acres. Property is comprised of 2 lots. The intention of the applicant is to develop multifamily, triplex on the property. There were no negative comments received, and it was recommended both by the Fort Pinellas and Planners Advisory Council for approval. Item 43 is a request for a zoning change from neighborhood commercial to employment on 0.47 acres on Walsingham. The zoning change will allow the expansion of a contractor's office to include storage of material. No correspondence been received, and it was recommended by LPA 6-0. 44 is a zoning change from a single family to multifamily. Well, it's actually a couple of different pieces on this. Again, this, however, it was unanimously recommended. Their proposal to build a 9-unit, 2-story multifamily house for veterans on the property. 3 letters and a petition with 19 signatures in opposition been received. And they just stated that the increased density, multifamily housing, and traffic concerns. Again, it was unanimously recommended. 45, This is a zoning change from 123 family residential to rural residential on .94 acres in unincorporated Largo. The proposed use is a single-family home and a personal horse stable. No correspondence has been received and recommended 6-0 for approval. Item 46 and 47 need to be deferred to the January meeting because the advertisement, the public hearing advertisement was not done in time. 48 is a petition to vacate a 16-foot wide alley. The recommendation is denial of the petition to vacate the alley based upon staff's review. The petition is requesting the vacation to allow for the development of the property. I know people have reached out to you. Staff feels that denial is based upon the Lincoln-Lellman plan. They will have a presentation at Tuesday's meeting.
A question.
I have a question about this too.
Yeah, I had we met, I think we probably all have, but we met with staff and got a really good summary of what was going on. The representative for the owner also reached out, I'm sure, to many of you as well. And we were talking about the moving of a alley to the other side of the property and the issues that it might cause with staff. And the conversation regarding taking some of that, some additional property, if we moved it, so that the radius for turning is there. And I know staff was going to be looking at that, and
They have.
Is that going to be presented on Tuesday as well?
It will be. They've looked at it. Both Kelly and Andrew are here.
We had to try to get an idea how much additional land we would need to accommodate them, staff's concerns, but also would be reasonable to the applicant.
They'll turn it on.
Okay. Brian, can you bring up the image, the exhibits for me?
Hey, give me one moment, Kelly.
Sure, thank you. So we have 3 exhibits that we prepared. The first one here is basically the proposal by the applicant to shift the alleyway to the west, and then the turning movement there does not meet our code. So the red line is essentially what additional space would be needed to accommodate the turning radius. So Brian, if you can go to page 2. All right, so this is what that turning radius would look like, moving north to south or south to north, whichever direction you're coming from. And then the next page is coming from the other way. So you can see essentially we would need the clip of lot 7, which they currently are proposing for parking. But that's what would be needed in order to accommodate the turning radius requirements and staying off of other property. So we had to wholly stay on lot number 7.
While you have that up, I have a question.
I do too. Go ahead.
Seems like they're only in 6 inches into the right-of-way, from what I understand. Why could it not just jog over a little bit and accommodate that 6 inches and not move it all the way over to the other side of that other lot?
The proposal to move that alleyway all the way to the other side came from the applicant.
Well, I know, but because they were being told that they had to tear the building down and tear up take out the fence on the sidewalk and maybe tear the building down because it was non-compliant.
Well, I mean, we did propose 2 parking options to the applicant. We were requested to meet with their engineer. We did. And we actually laid out a couple of designs for the applicant that achieved their parking request while retaining the alleyway in its current configuration.
Right.
Didn't receive any feedback personally on those 2 design alternatives that we provided. We were hopeful that those 2 design alternatives might alleviate the need for the vacation at all. With regard to that specific building, Blake is here and he can speak to the conditions of it. It's, wholly constructed without building permits, and it probably won't be allowed to stay irregardless, which would give them the opportunity to build a compliant structure, so.
But the building's been there for 15 years?
There's a
Is
lot
my
of,
understanding.
there's a lot of violations on that property. I'll let Blake speak to that.
Commissioner Justice, while you're, yeah.
I have
Well, I didn't have a question about the building. It was the, I guess when I first saw it, I thought the denial was for some underground, but if it's for maintenance of the alley, I guess I don't understand the need for the maintenance of the alley when there's not alley access on the properties north or south of this property. It's not like it's a corridor alley from neighborhood to neighborhood. I mean, just south of it is completely blocked off with an auto care place, and north of it looks, I can't really tell with the trees there, but so I guess that's the part I was confused about. Typically, if there's an alley from here, this property, you don't want to block off an alley if you have an actual, but there's no alley north or south of it, so I guess that's where I was a little confused.
Good morning, Blake Lyon, Director of Building Development Review Services and Code Enforcement. So what I'd like to share with you maybe is give you a little bit of context on how this item came before us. So we have a code enforcement case that was brought to the county that identifies both the conversion of the single-family home into a cultural center, so there's without the necessary permits and approvals. Then that also parlayed into the fact that there's been a variety of building additions on the property that have been done without the benefit of a permit. So one of the opportunities, if you look back at the aerial, you'll see that there's an appendage to the existing building that projects not only into the setback, but actually off of the property and into the alley. So in conversations with the property owners and with their representatives, one of the ways to effectively cure that violation into the alley and into that setback is to go through the process of vacating that alley, or in this case, potentially relocating that alley and assuming that as part of their property. So this is one of the potential remedies that would get them closer to addressing both the code violations that are on the site. So that's kind of what we did. Now, to your point, Commissioner Justice, about the alleys and stuff, that's part of what the Linking Lealman study has been doing, is looking at the preservation and or enhancement of those alleys in that area. So they're taking a broader community-wide look at those alleys, not just the one-off in particular. So that's part of the effort there.
So can I, while you're up there, can I ask, is it the accessory building that's protruding into the alley that's the problem with code enforcement?
That's one of the problems, yes. So historically, you'll see there on the right side, it's lots 4, 5, and 6 that run north to south, yes, and then lot 7 is on the west side. So effectively, historically, those lots 4, 5, and 6 were built in 1950. They had 3 independent single-family homes on them. Those 4, 5, and 6 have been merged, and what you're seeing in that image there is a kind of a conglomeration of rooftops and buildings. The white one that's in the center is actually a temporary pop-up tent, if you will, that fills in the gap between the what was formerly a residence to the south and one to the north, and then there's the building where the numbers 4 and 5 are located on the left side is a relatively new building, and they've built appendages off the side of those. And Andrew's got some images and photographs of those. And if you looked at that kind of white roof side that's on the left-hand side, where just the left of the number 4 there, yeah, exactly. You will see that that structure has been built without the benefit of any permits, in part because of, you can tell just at least from those that have a little bit of a trained eye, the flashing, the gaps in the building. They're using drywall as exterior, which is not, I mean, there's a lot of things in there that just, they'd have to go back through and obtain a building permit. My opinion is as it stands now, that structure wouldn't respond to that, so they'd have to rebuild it. And so, again, they're building in the setback. They're also building off of their property into the right-of-way. So we'd have to address those issues.
So is that part of the building, part of their functionality, or is it just what the heck? Oh, anyway. Yes, Commissioner Egger.
Yeah, so thank you for looking at the radius issue here. What strikes me is that under the current scenario, staff has argued that with the T set up, the original alley, that there was a easier way to move to the left because they could, however you described it as being able to make the turn.
Right.
So this scenario is providing a whole different picture than what would exist on the other one. So I think this is probably more land than the staff would really require to do those turns in the same manner that you were talking about them doing those turns under the other T.
Right.
So, because that works out to about, it looks like about 1,000 square feet, if I did my math right. And to me, that's just, I mean, it's like putting a roadway in there for alleys. I mean, I think we could cut that a lot shorter, and I think that's something that we need to think about. Not necessarily how it would maximize the turning radius, but more importantly, the same standard that we were talking about under the other scenario, which was not this. It was really about having a clear way to do a turn and using the T. So I just think the standard needs to be similar, that's all. And I think that's a lot of space to take from a piece of property.
That is code. So that was actually done in software and calculated. It's per code. So that, doing anything less than that would be non-compliant with our own code.
So, but the scenario that you have now, if you cleared up the encroachment, the argument that was used then is that we have the ability to turn better on a T and leaving the alleyway where it is now. So, I mean, again, we're trying to create something in between. It may not be to code, but it still enables an easier way to do it, and it accommodates the project. I mean, forgetting all the other issues that Blake raised, which was the use of that facility under its current, and also the encroachments and the setbacks. Those are different issues. But just moving it over there, I think, is a great way to accommodate the request. But that's a lot of space to take, is what I'm saying.
Good morning, Andrew Pupke, Administrative Services. I think it's important to point out that we have attempted to work with the applicant through this process. So there was the first request for the vacation of the alley, which was not supported as a result of the linking Lellman plan. There was the discussion about moving the alley to the west, which was supported by two of the objecting departments, but then created an issue with the Public Works perspective on this. We then, just before Thanksgiving, spoke with the applicant through their engineer and a county engineer and discussed the opportunity to put parking on lot number 7, which would give the applicant the ability to have the alley as a way to access that parking on that side, on the east side, or they could put the drive aisle for the parking on the very west edge of lot number 7 and retain the alley for future use as well. In either case, the alley would be retained. The applicant's representative indicated to us, however, that was not acceptable because it did not address the encroachment issue, which is what we're bringing back to you as well this morning, that structure is substandard. It is not a non-permitted structure. The pictures that we can share with you on Tuesday indicate that it is put together with drywall and a screen door, and as Blake mentioned, it's got open conduit running around the edge. It looks like the roof is temporarily tied into the existing roof, but there was not a willingness at that point to consider removing that encroachment, which would, I think, address all parties' concerns. If the encroachment was no longer either in the setback or the right-of-way, the parking could be accommodated, which would be also addressing the non-conforming use of the facility from a residential to an assembly, and it would satisfy the county's future interest in the linking Lellman and having the alley available for a path of travel as necessary in the future.
Yeah, and my only comment on that was that in that linking Lellman scenario, where you would keep the alley on the eastern side, you're not addressing any of those turning radiuses that we're now requiring here in that scenario, because, I mean, obviously, as we open up these alleys and garbage trucks move down these alleys and such, then they have to be able to turn also. So, I mean, as long as the standard is being utilized then, as it is what we're requiring of these folks, then I think it's a fair statement. That's all I'm saying. So I haven't heard any of that linking Laleman plan and how we're going to adjust these alleys as those turning radiuses, which that's not what I had heard from staff. I had heard that it was just enabling them to make a T turn if you kept the T in place, and it would be easier. So I just want to make sure the standards are kept.
Sure, and the last response I'll make to that is that in the existing T configuration, there is an existing scenario, and it allows for the garbage trucks and other type of access to utilize a north-south movement directly, so there really wouldn't be a turn there. Commissioner, you're absolutely right. As you're coming from the east-west and trying to make that is an existing condition. The opportunity when we look at it and say, okay, if we're going to revise it, to Kelly's point earlier, how do we bring it up to standard? How do we bring it up to code? And so that's where the new configuration looks like. So
yeah, and I think that
try to improve the situation.
That goes to the width of the alley too. Yep. They are all over the place. So is a 16-foot alley even standard to begin with? I don't know. Could be 20, could be 8, could be whatever. So those are issues that when you talk about bringing standards to a substandard alley, I just think we need to be thinking creatively on this and seeing how we can make this work. But I think there's other challenges that you all have brought up with this owner. So thank you.
Well, I guess I have a question about, so even if they moved the alley, that wouldn't cure the code problem, would it?
No, correct.
You're still going to have to deal with that, right?
What it would do is essentially it would change where that you wouldn't be encroaching onto the public right of way. It would change where the setback is, and that the projection, it does not address the building code issues and the concerns they have there. So they would have to address that as a separate matter anyway.
But if they took that down, it would absolve the whole
that's the
problem.
position we've carried all along, is that shouldn't stay.
But the use has to be addressed as well, correct?
Both the use of that lots 4, 5, and 6 as a cultural center and not as a residential use would require a type 2 approval through the Board of Adjustment, as well as using lot 7 for parking. So both of those components could be combined and taken forward to the Board of Adjustment. I will tell you that records indicate that there was an attempt to do that back in 1990, which at that time was considered a special exception, and that was denied for reasons at that time. So I'll have to go back and evaluate that a little further.
But the use has been in place for 30 years, at least.
Something to that effect, yes.
Commissioner Justice?
Thank you. That's what I was going to ask, was about, there's spots throughout this community where it's residential, I assume, but there's obviously non-residential uses going on, and how do we address that? I mean, directly south of that is some sort of auto repair facility, and I think, if I'm remembering it, west of there's one back in the corner as well. But how do we deal with that?
The auto repair shop has what we call a verified non-conforming use. So they actually went through a process to say that use has been established prior to the zoning requirements, and therefore they have a standing in that regard. So they actually have gone through a process to document that and legitimize the contents of that use that were there. This particular property has not gone through that same experience. I should mention, and I'll have to go back in and verify some of this, but there is a state law that allows for places of worship and utilization as cultural center if you have certain less than a certain number. So it's 6 or fewer people that go, and so you're exempted from zoning issues. When those types of uses grow beyond that capacity, then they're subject to the zoning, and then that's what would require them to go through this under our current code, this type 2 use.
That's so in any residential neighborhood in Florida, you could convert your home to if you stayed under those limits?
The state law allows for you to convert a single family home to a group living facility, alcohol rehabilitation, domestic violence, religious institutions, as long as there are 6 or fewer people that are occupying that building. The local government cannot impose any more regulations than they would on a traditional single-family home. When you grow beyond that, that's when you are subject to additional considerations for that local government.
I can attest to that. Behind me, there's it used to be a single-family home, was made a duplex, and then one of the sides was made into a 6 and under rehab facility, right in our 60 neighborhood.
But I thought that facility was in place before the zoning came in. So would it be possible for them to?
I don't know that it was with this particular, that's the research we're doing right now.
I mean, I think a good point was raised when you said that, I don't know if you said it, but, these folks transition over time. So the folks that were there that made the request 30 years or 20 probably aren't still, maybe some are, but many new folks have come in, and sometimes they're not even aware of some of the things that have happened in the past. So, anyway, I think that needs to be considered as well, not necessarily in amending what is required, but just in understanding their plight, their predicament.
Okay. All right. More on that later. All right. Next issue, 49.
Then item 49 is the resolution designating the former Bay Point Golf Course as a brownfield site.
Thank you. All right. And does anybody have any special? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Seal. Okay, turn your microphone on.
A JWB meeting is concurrently going on with this meeting, but I just wanted to give you an update of a couple things that were on the agenda because I think they're really important. One is to realign some budget items so that they can bring up the Family Services Initiative back up and make it stronger to address, since we're ending our COVID CARES financial assistance program, this will substitute for families and be put into place. They'll increase navigators, they'll increase the staff at 211, and many other things. And I'm happy to send you the details of the agenda items.
Great.
They'll also allocate funding to the Pinellas Community Foundation for family eviction prevention. So again, kind of doing what we were doing with our COVID money, but this will jump in and help families. And then the other thing, just because you may hear more about it, but I think I mentioned at a previous meeting that Religious Community Services, now known as the Hope Villages of America, has been on probation with JWB for a long time. And so the decision has been made, will be made, I'm sure, to approve the termination of the Grace House contract. And that will allocate the remaining funds of $223,729 to the St. Vincent de Paul Family Bridge Housing. And so that'll be good because it'll be housing continued for the community.
Will that result, can I ask about that? Will that result in them closing that facility?
We're not sure. They've had, from what I understand, some discussions whether they would turn it into different kind of housing or affordable housing. And then the other is the St. Pete Free Clinic contract. They are closing their family residency program due to a shift in their strategic focus. So that funding will also be allocated to the St. Vincent de Paul Emergency Housing Program. So I just wanted to at least give you all a heads up on that.
Feels like we're going backwards on family shelter.
Yeah, but this is quite a lengthy agenda today. The other thing, and I talked to Barry briefly about it at the beginning of the meeting, but I'm sure we all read in the paper about the Bayside Bridge land property that was on our environmental list. And so I like to find out, Barry and I had a discussion about how that happened, but I guess it relates to all of our environmental lands list, that staff members need to be aware of what's on our list so that when things come forward, someone's not totally in the dark about it. And so anyway, it doesn't prevent somebody in the market from making an offer. We all know how that goes, and doing their due diligence and so on. But, and then secondly, kind of related but not related is we need to get some kind of progress report on how we're doing with the other environmental lands acquisition, because we've now had 2 properties that kind of went to the market, and we're having to scramble to figure out how we're going to do either both of these properties or not. And I just feel like we're moving kind of slowly, that's all. So.
Or not.
If I can speak to that. So as you're well aware, and it was reported in the paper, there was a 2018 list of projects. We've had an ongoing list of projects for many years. Properties that if we had funding available, we may want to purchase. Most of the county's properties that we've purchased is when people approach us. We haven't had a list where we're out actively looking because we simply don't have the funding set aside to be able to purchase large amounts of land. And in fact, most of the properties that you've received has been through donation, and trust and things like that over the years. But as part of the penny, we had a new penny, you did not purchase any properties between 2010 and 2020 except Bay Point Golf Course. And that was actually out of a separate pot of money. It wasn't out of environmental preservation, it was out of stormwater funds. So we created a list around 2018, but that was not a ranked list. And when I say that is, if we knew that on the property on the list just by the appraised value, or not appraised value, but the list on the tax deed exceeded $50 million. So the question is, what do you purchase first? What do you purchase second? Because if you go to the 5th item, well, what happens if the number 1 item comes for sale 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years from now? So we went through a process of trying to prioritize all of our projects. We brought that and talked to you about that right before the first of the year. That was what we were doing in ranking that project. Now, the fallacy to some of the conversations has been we were in constant contact with the estate on the Gladys Douglas property. And our county attorney's office had many communication with them in writing that I have about we were in the process of working through that and dealing with a pandemic, mind you. As we started that ranked process, though, we got busy with this property, the Gladys Douglas property, because of the contract for sale for Pulte. So we did shift. We worked with the city, and we've been working with the city, and there'll be more to report on that very shortly. A certain gentleman made us aware that this property is for sale. Well, we didn't disagree that it was too much for staff to take on because you got 50 different pieces of property. And it's not just that you go out and do that. You have to do an appraisal. You have to contact the owner. So we brought on a broker to represent us, to be able to go out and have someone that we could turn to look and start approaching the different property owners. We did that in the late summer. This property was made aware of us. That our broker then contacted that person. At that time, the property was already under contract. So and that was, I don't know, late summer, early fall. I have to get the exact date on that, but it was under contract. So, it is what it is. It was, and so unless they backed out or something, that was there. We do have the resources now. We have a contract purchaser that can go out and look at these, but again, it's a long list. You might have 5 or 6 properties that there's no interest. You also, several of them, and it's not just, this is a list of the things we want to purchase. Several of them are up in an area where if we got one, that would give us access issues to water, well, then we wouldn't need the 2 or 3 other items, because it's whichever property would give us what we're trying to achieve. So that's the way in which we're trying to manage the list. We do not have enough funds
to be able to purchase everything we would like to purchase under the existing scenario, and that's coming out of the penny dollars. We set aside $15 million for a 10-year period, and in fact, as you know, we're now having to go back and reassess our penny projects because of the pandemic and the impact on that. We will not fully know the financial impact of that probably for another year or so. So we're constantly assessing that, so it'll be kind of a work in progress. But that's kind of been the process we took. We don't disagree in terms of we needed additional resources to actively go out and look at these properties, and we put those resources on staff, but that was this summer. And remember, the penny funds didn't begin until just this last January. That's when we collected first dime of the new penny. So.
Hard to believe it's been almost a year. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I do apologize for item number 24 that deals with the grant to help with our backlog for DNA. Do we have any idea as to whether or not that will help us get through that backlog, or just put a severe dent a nice dent in that?
Yeah, Lourdes can address that. That's working through the medical examiner's office, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, they've actually seen an increase. We've had that grant for 9 years, and we desperately need it. They've had quite an increase through the years, and this year they've had over a 10% increase. So they work very hard to bring the backlog down. Last I checked, there wasn't this huge backlog, so, don't get me wrong.
Okay, you don't have to bring it here, but if you could maybe follow up on that for me and just see,
what the
if we have a
backlog is?
backlog of 500 test kits, this will reduce that to 100 test kits, or?
Yeah, they've done a really good job of reducing it because of this funding, but I'll get that exact number to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it seems like we gave them extra funding a couple of years ago. We increased their funding to deal with that, didn't we?
I believe so.
Or at
yeah.
least bought the equipment that would
Yeah,
help.
yeah, we gave them new equipment, yep.
Okay. Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just back on the preservation, probably a year ago, a group had a discussion with a group that wanted us to do a dedicated millage increase specifically for preservation, like our own version of Preservation 2000 or whatever it's called now in Tallahassee. And the thought was that during the pandemic and budgets and everything else, that people said, no, we're not going to, just as we did with our transportation initiative, this wasn't the time to put something on the ballot. What's interesting is in that Manatee and Collier County, both in this November, approved millage increases or continuation of millage increases dedicated towards land preservation, land purchase, parks, whatever, different in each one. Manatee and Collier hardly hotbeds of tax and spend localities. So this is an interesting thought as we continue this discussion down the road that if it is we're hearing out it on this specific property, but maybe we kind of put something before the voters and let them decide on how much of a priority it really is. Thank you.
Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is it's always a tough discussion point because there's a lot of, we really haven't, as a body, talked about that list in a lot of detail. Some of it's by definition, you don't want to say, oh, we all love this one property, and then, all of a sudden the price starts to go up. But there is some discussion that I think can be had about prioritizing types of properties. And I mentioned several meetings ago about this, Pinellas County just has such a shortage of lands that are out there, whether it's for light industrial purposes and, more jobs, more companies, more jobs, raising salaries for our residents. I think that's an important component of land discussion, as is affordable housing. And so, again, I'm not saying that environmental lands and stormwater aren't pressing issues as well. So there's a conversation to be had around that. I don't know, for one, how many acres, what percentage of the land in Pinellas County is dedicated to parks now. I'm sure there's a number. Maybe you know that updated number because it changes all the time. But we need to have that perspective, I think, so that we can, at least when we're telling our residents that, we're looking at environmental lands. Oh, by the way, Pinellas County now has this much It helps in that narrative. So I think if we can continue to look at the 3 demands on our land for public purposes, I think that's going to be important. And then this whole issue of prioritization and kind of getting some thoughts from our board here is going to be important too, to help your broker that you have. Hopefully he's identified all these properties and has a contact information of these people and has a status report of those properties. So that's a database that he could build or she could build and have a real understanding and have the hand on the pulse, so to speak. So that's not that difficult to do.
And we wanted to bring this back. We've talked about it a couple of times. We want to bring back and have that conversation. It's that every time then we get stuck on to the Douglas property, and we're working on that. So we wanted to wait until after that was over, and then the next piece comes up. So we do need to have that conversation, and we're going to bring that forward. And I just put it out for the public discussion. Part of that list, people look at different parts. It's a moving target, right? It's not necessarily a list, 1, 2, 3. It is, here are things that we need access up in the enclosed area okay, we need, so it's a fluid process. But it also has a competing demands. One of the issues is cost per acre. Because if in fact, the property is too expensive, I can solve 3 other issues countywide because of this. Well, and so people go, well, that's number 1 property. Well, no, it's not. It's not number 1 from an environmental standpoint, from a preservation standpoint, and then you got to balance that with the cost. At a certain point, we just can't afford it, right? And so it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's everything has to go into some of that decision making, and so it's going to be a fluid process throughout. I do believe that we're getting the infrastructure in. I do believe we can bring it back for that discussion, and try and get some input in terms of how we go about this. But we're gonna have to continually discuss it because it's going to change over time.
Just one other comment, and that is that land availability in Pinellas County will only go down over time because there's just less and less land. So the one thought is that you could accelerate some of the spending to the front end of the first 5 years, because if we wait to the last 5 years, opportunities will come and go. And maybe you leave a portion of it in case that perfect one that we haven't identified yet all of a sudden comes available and we don't have any funds left. So you have to kind of balance that process a little bit. But I would like to have that discussion about the budget impacts from COVID as it relates to the concept of increasing the amount of $15 million to this effort.
Well, and
so if we go to 30 million, there's a cause and effect on our budget. So it'd be nice to understand that as we
absolutely, because right now we're looking at cutting projects. And this is the difficulty I have dealing with local municipalities or others. They're like, well, your budget's real big. I'm like, yeah, and guess what? Now that I got to cut 6% out of the penny, those are big cuts. Those are actual projects. Those are resurfacings. Those are infrastructure that we built as part of the penny ask. And so and it is going to take us a little time to kind of, because it may not be 6%, it may be 4%, maybe 2%. We may recover. Those are going to be fluid, so we're going to have to continually update that. We're not opposed, though, to front loading funds to be able to get the right purchases. So we're not opposed to that at all.
Every property has a dynamic to it that's unique. Like the public is going to step forward in some cases and say, I want to donate money, and which would help leverage our money or grant money into a larger purchase.
Those are part of the criteria. Others funding sources, you bet, it gets you more points because it allows us to maximize our dollars. So we will bring that back shortly for that discussion.
Mr. Justice.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Just since we're kind of having a freewheeling discussion on it, is, during the last couple months, everyone's been talking about the property in the Dunedin area about preservation. And, the county doesn't do anything. The county doesn't have any green space, to your point, Commissioner Eggers. And we talk about 20% or whatever, 30%, but that's kind of like off balance because Brooker Creek is such a big part of that. And, people south of Ulmerton may not have been to Brooker Creek recently. And then I talked in the last several months as we tried to talk about some of the successes of the county. We talked about, we added 125 acres to an 86-acre park, and they go, that's nice, but what are you doing about what are you doing about the property in Dunedin? And so that's just a continual shift in the priorities and the conversation out there, but.
Yeah.
Right. And especially in North County, we have a lot of acreage already. But yes, Commissioner Peters.
Thank you. I'm going to shift the subject, and Commissioner Steele made me think about it. And I don't know if I reported this before, and if I did, I apologize. As you know, 80% of brain development in children really is before age 3. And currently in Pinellas County, 40% of all kindergartners are not ready for school. So the big issue that the Early Learning Coalition is facing right now is the minimum wage constitutional amendment that passed. Early school education and school care providers spend approximately 78% of their revenue on staffing costs. The increase in minimum wage could result in a tuition spike of 59% over the next 5 years. So not only is tuition going to go up for early learning, but because many of the families are going to get a wage increase, which is wonderful, right? Now they're going to make too much to be able to qualify for a subsidy for childcare. So not only are many of our small businesses going to go out of business as a result of this constitutional amendment, because many people won't be able to afford to pay that child care cost, but many of our families are not going to be eligible to put their children in child care, which in turn could cause many of them to go unemployed, because it's a disincentive to employ. If you can't afford your child care, you're better off staying home, taking care of your own children, and getting welfare, but or assistance. So there's going to be a real big issue from now in the next 5 years on child care, on people to be able to afford child care, especially our disadvantaged families, and their ability to thrive in school as a result of not having good early brain development opportunities. So just FYI on something else. Thank you for reminding me.
Anything else? Alrighty. We'll see you next week then.
Okay, great.